Welcome to another edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus. This is my second video on the Helios 44-2 58mm 2.0 lens with the front element reversed. In my previous video on this lens, I shot mostly at or near the close focus distance of this lens, and I will put a link in the description below to this video. With the front element reversed, you get exaggerated swirly bokeh as well as a dreamy look. I called it magical, but someone who viewed my video said it's more dreamy, and I agree. It gives you a dreamy look. And I use this lens with the Photassi M42 to NZ adapter on my Nikon Z8 camera, as I did in my previous video. And there are adapters that enable you to use this lens on just about any mirrorless camera. And in this video, I was shooting at distance up to infinity. And everything was shot either wide open at 2.0 or one stop down at 2.8. So we're going to start out with this image here, shooting into the sun of a tree. You could see the flare, and I don't recommend getting the sun in the image with this lens. The coatings are not very good. But here's something interesting of this bush. And, I kind of like the way it renders certain images. It's not for everything. What it did with this bicycle with no tires or seat, kind of interesting. It's not the best lens for people. Now, I imagine if you were shooting a bride for some kind of dreamy look, it might work. But you could see with the images of these gentlemen, I guess this one's better than the last, but I don't really like it for people. For birds, however, I think it works a little bit better, as with these pelicans. It kind of, the whites kind of bloom out. They kind of flare out, as you can see here. And I don't know, it has some interest for me. I'm not crazy about it for birds. Again, it's very limited as to what subjects work. These boats seems to render okay, but it's the kind of a lens that you really got to play around with. You got to experiment with. You have to shoot a lot of different things, and that's the beauty of digital. I like this shot of the pelicans better, but that's the beauty of digital, is that there's no cost when you shoot, right? Just time spent going through your images. But with film, it'd be really difficult to do this much experimenting. Now, this shot I kind of like of these ladies. I think the lady in the middle in pink, I kind of like the look of this. But like I said, just experiment if you're going to try this lens, and just shoot a bunch of different things and see what you get. You may like some of them, you may hate some of them, but just play around and shoot a lot. Don't shoot as much as me. I shoot way too much when I'm out experimenting with these lenses, and I spend a lot of time on the computer when I get back. And I recommend you being a little more selective. That's one of the advantages of film, that you are more selective, because what do you have, a 36 exposure roll loaded in the camera, and film today is expensive, and every time you press that shutter release, it's going to cost you. So you need to take your time and just be more selective. Now, I like some of these shots we're going to be looking at now of some buildings, and I kind of like these. I think it works well with light color images. This light color building, either white or just off-white or light yellow, and it just seems to render them better. I like the dreamy look of this. It kind of reminds me back when I was, oh my God, early in my days in photography, actually before I was serious, when I was just a kid. I had a Diana camera, and it was took 120 film, and the lens was horrible, but the images kind of look like this a little bit. And I know there's some people today, I believe those cameras make sort of a bit of a comeback a few years back. And some of these images with this lens remind me of those Diana images. And just look it up. I'm sure you'll be able to find some videos on shooting with the Diana. But that's what this kind of reminds me of. I like this one of the side of this building. And, sometimes we're trying to think, well, I want to go out and take some pictures, but what am I going to shoot? Especially if you're at home. If you're on vacation, always seems there's something to shoot. If you're traveling, there's always something different, something you've never seen before. But when you're in familiar surroundings, sometimes it gets kind of boring and you still want to go out and shoot some images. So a lens like this will enable you to record things differently, to render things differently, to see things differently. Looking through the lens, everything looks different with this lens. And the same, I just did a video on a fisheye lens. And the same thing, it's definitely not for everything. I think this lens, this Helios with the front element reversed, uh, works better for more subjects than the fisheye, but the fisheye still gives you a different look and you can experiment with it. And even, shooting macro photos is, if you're, what am I going to shoot? I don't know what to shoot. Put on a macro lens or use extension tubes on a lens that you have or some close-up lenses and just look at the world much closer. I recently did a video on that with the 85 millimeter 1.8 lens with extension tubes. So I am a big believer in experimentation and just shooting a lot of images, and who knows what you will find. Now, these last couple images were couple Christmas scenes, Christmas lights. I like what it did with the lights. I think I'm going to shoot some images in Philadelphia of some decorated houses with this lens just to see what it will give me. And it adds a little something different to the holiday images. Now, you could pick these Helios lenses up fairly inexpensively, well under $100. And of course, you're going to need an adapter for your mirrorless camera. But, if you have a Pentax film camera or a camera that takes the Pentax screw mount, you can mount it directly to the camera. Now, here I'm just indicating on the retaining ring on the front element. You'll see in the red boxes, you just take a jeweler's screwdriver or a spanner wrench and you just unscrew that retaining ring, flip the front element over, put the retaining ring back, and you will have a very interesting lens to work with. Just be careful that your screwdriver does not slip off one of those little slots as you're unscrewing that retaining ring. You don't want to scratch that front element. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions on this video, please leave them in the comments below. I always try to respond to all questions and comments. And I usually publish a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So I will talk to you then.